worried. That word alone should make you stop and think. If the one who sees everything, who knows the threads before they're even pulled, is worried, what does that say about us? Maybe it means the world has gone too far into its own lies, too deep into its own poison. Maybe it means the masks have gotten so convincing that even truth has to lean forward and whisper, enough. Tonight isn't about waiting for a miracle. It isn't about some gentle push from the sky. No, tonight is sharper, heavier. When worry turns to warning, it's no longer a suggestion. It's a demand. Worry from above is not a whisper. It's a warning. People love to dress it up, don't they? They say it's just a feeling, a little nudge, a soft reminder. But when the weight comes from above, it's not gentle, it's not delicate. It's thunder wrapped in silence. It's a fire behind the curtain. It's the kind of signal you can feel in your bones, even when your mind pretends not to hear it. Worry from above isn't like your own restless nights, where you toss and turn about bills, mistakes, and regrets. No, this is different. This is the sound of the universe, clearing its throat. The sky looking down at you and saying, move, before I move you. Most people ignore it. They want to believe the world is stable, that everything will just keep ticking as it always has. They laugh at warnings, label them as paranoia, shove them into the dark corners of their minds, because warnings are inconvenient. They force you to admit something's wrong. They force you to admit you're fragile, that the ground you've been standing on isn't nearly as solid as you'd like it to be. And humans, oh, they hate that feeling. So they cover their ears, paint on their smiles, and keep walking straight into the fire, pretending it isn't there. But worry from above doesn't care if you listen. It doesn't care if you mock it, dismiss it, or bury it under distractions. It grows louder, heavier, pressing down until the cracks begin to show in your carefully built little world. The light flickers, the air grows thick, and suddenly, even the blind can feel it. You know the feeling. You've had it before. The sudden shiver down your spine when nothing's wrong, the way your chest tightens for no reason, the way silence in a room feels like it's watching you. That's not coincidence. That's warning. That's the air turning into a messenger, telling you something's coming whether you want it or not. And here's the part nobody likes to admit. Warnings aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to prepare you. But preparation takes humility, and humility is scarce. Everyone wants to believe they're untouchable. Untouchable until the moment they're not. So instead of changing, they wait. Instead of listening, they delay. They cling to comfort, thinking it'll protect them from what's crawling closer. They tell themselves, "It's fine, nothing's happening, it's just in my head." But deep down, they know better. They know when the air is too heavy to breathe, when the silence is too sharp to ignore, when the sense of being watched is too real to shake off. That's not imagination. That's the warning crawling under your skin. Worry from above is not an invitation to sit and cry. It's not asking you to panic. It's telling you, blunt and raw, that something has shifted. It's a flashing light on a dark road, telling you the bridge ahead is broken. And if you're foolish enough to ignore it, the fall is yours to take. But if you're sharp enough, hungry enough, desperate enough, you'll act. You'll move before the crash. That's the difference between those who survive and those who don't. Not strength, not luck, but the ability to take a warning seriously before it becomes disaster. The irony is, the louder the warning, the more people mock it. They laugh at prophets, dismiss dreamers, ridicule anyone who dares to say, "The storm is close." It's safer to mock than to admit they're scared. But the storm doesn't care about their laughter. It doesn't pause to wait for their acceptance. It comes anyway, ripping through everything, leaving only those standing who had the nerve to listen. The rest, they drown in their own disbelief, suffocated by the very silence they thought was harmless. So when worry comes from above, understand, it's not a whisper for comfort. It's not meant to stroke your ego or pat your back. It's a warning, raw and jagged, telling you to break your routine, to shed your comfort, to sharpen your senses. It's not paranoia, it's survival. Because the moment you start treating warnings as whispers, that's the moment you hand yourself over to whatever's waiting in the shadows. And the shadows always take what's offered. Change doesn't knock, it crashes in. People love to imagine change as this polite little guest, don't they? They picture it arriving neatly dressed, standing at the door with flowers in hand, waiting for them to open up. But that's a fantasy for the weak. Real change doesn't care about your schedule, your comfort, your carefully planned little routine. It doesn't wait for permission. It storms in like a thief at midnight, kicks down the door, shatters the windows, and drags you out into the cold, whether you're ready or not. And the funny part, most people hate that. They cry about it, they curse it, they label it as unfair. Because deep down, they weren't planning on moving. They weren't planning on letting go of the rotten life they were clinging to. They wanted change, sure, but only on their terms. They wanted it slow, predictable, convenient. They wanted transformation without discomfort, growth without pain, progress without sacrifice. But that's not how it works. Change is violent. Change is messy. Change doesn't care if you're prepared. It only cares about tearing down what no longer belongs. You ever notice how people pray for change? They beg for a new life, a fresh start, a breakthrough. And then, when the storm comes, when everything starts collapsing, they scream, "Why me?" As if the collapse wasn't the very thing they asked for. They don't understand that sometimes the walls have to burn before you realize you were trapped inside them. Sometimes the floor has to crack before you see it was built on sand. That's how change works. It doesn't show up to decorate. It shows up to demolish. The truth is, if change knocked politely, most of you wouldn't even open the door. You'd look through the peephole, see it standing there, and say, "Not today. I'm tired. I'll deal with it tomorrow." That's why it doesn't knock. That's why it breaks in. Because left to your own devices, you'd stay stuck forever, rotting in comfort, telling yourself lies about timing. You'd say, "I'll start when I'm ready." But here's the secret. You're never ready. You'll never be ready. And change knows it. That's why it doesn't wait for your readiness. It rips through your life, dragging you forward even as you claw at the past. There's a certain beauty in that chaos, though, because in the middle of the destruction, something new begins to breathe. Think about it. When the house burns, you finally see the sky. When the storm hits, you finally realize how strong you can stand. It's only in the wreckage that you see what's real and what was just decoration. Change strips you bare. It takes away the illusions, the distractions, the little comforts you thought you needed. It throws you into the mirror and says, "Look, this is you, no masks, no excuses, just you." And for most people, that's terrifying. That's why they fight it. But the fight is useless. You can't stop it. You can't bargain with it. You can't chain it down. You can only choose how you face it. Run from it, and it will drag you screaming. Face it, and it will carve you into something unrecognizable, something stronger. But either way it comes, always. People fear the crash because they think it means the end. They think when change tears their life apart, it's destruction without purpose. But destruction is the beginning of creation. The same way fire clears the forest so new life can grow. Change burns away the dead weight so something alive can take its place. That's the part most never see. They're too busy crying over the ashes to notice the soil is richer now. They're too busy mourning what collapsed to realize the chains they hated are gone. So no, change doesn't knock. It doesn't whisper. It doesn't play nice. It crashes, it breaks, it destroys. And in that destruction, it creates the only chance you'll ever get to actually live. Most people never take it, though. They keep trying to patch the broken door, sweep up the glass, rebuild the same fragile little house that couldn't withstand the storm in the first place. They don't get it. They don't see that the crash wasn't an accident. It was the only way forward. Stillness becomes a grave when ignored too long. People like to think standing still is harmless, that doing nothing is safer than risking the wrong move. They convince themselves that silence, hesitation, waiting, it's strategy. But it isn't. It's slow death dressed up as patience. Stillness rots you from the inside, and the longer you sit in it, the more it feels normal. That's the trick. The grave doesn't feel like a grave at first. It feels like comfort. It feels like control. You tell yourself you're saving energy, avoiding mistakes, waiting for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment never comes. Time keeps moving. The world keeps shifting. And you're the only thing that stays still. Do you know what happens to water when it doesn't move? It becomes poison. It grows stagnant, filthy, crawling with disease. Life needs motion. The current keeps it alive. People are the same. The second you stop moving, stop reaching, stop changing, you start dying. Not all at once, of course. Slowly. Quietly. The body still breathes, the heart still beats, but the soul is buried, layer by layer, under excuses. That's the grave I'm talking about. A grave that doesn't need dirt, just enough days spent doing nothing. And the worst part is, most don't even notice it happening. They decorate their graves. They put flowers on the headstone and call it routine. They light candles in the coffin and call it stability. They convince themselves that this is life, work, sleep, repeat. They trick themselves into believing stillness equals safety. But safety is an illusion. Safety is the trap, because while you're still, the world isn't. While you're quiet, others are building, moving, becoming. And when you finally look up, you realize the game left you behind a long time ago. Fear is usually the hand that pushes people into their graves. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of stepping into the unknown. So they sit, they wait, they shrink their lives into the smallest possible space. Thinking small means safe. But in reality, fear doesn't protect you. It buries you. Every time you choose not to move because of fear, you dig another inch into the ground. Eventually, you're so deep you can't even see the surface anymore. And then you wonder why the world feels so dark. There's a sick irony to it, too. People think stillness buys them time, but it does the opposite. Stillness wastes it. You lose years to hesitation, decades to comfort, and one day you wake up old, bitter, asking yourself where it all went. You had ideas, dreams, chances. You had the energy, the hunger, the time. But you traded it for stillness, for safety, for the illusion of control. That's when you realize the grave you're lying in is one you built yourself, brick by brick, choice by choice. What makes this grave so dangerous is that it doesn't look like death until it's too late. You're not screaming, you're not bleeding, you're not falling apart. You're just fine. And fine is the enemy. Fine means nothing is changing. Nothing is breaking. Nothing is growing. Fine is the mask you wear while everything inside is starving. People say they don't want chaos, they don't want pain. But pain means you're alive. Pain means you're moving. Pain means you're out of the grave. Fine means you've already settled into the coffin and closed the lid yourself. And here's the cruelest truth. Movement doesn't guarantee success, but stillness guarantees failure. At least when you move, there's a chance, a risk, a spark. Stillness erases that chance completely. You can't stumble into growth by standing still. You can't discover anything new by hiding in silence. You can't become anything more by clinging to what you already are. Stillness robs you of possibility, and without possibility, what's left? Nothing but the slow burial of your own potential. People tell themselves they'll move tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll start. Tomorrow they'll change. Tomorrow they'll break free. But tomorrow is the shovel that digs the grave deeper. Tomorrow is the lie that kills today. And the longer you believe in tomorrow, the heavier the dirt piles on top of you, until one day you can't move even if you want to. Not because you're out of time, but because you've forgotten how. That's the true horror of stillness. It doesn't just kill your future. It kills your ability to imagine one. Excuses dissolve when urgency enters the room. You can hold on to lies for as long as the fire isn't at your feet. You can tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, not ready yet. You can dress your fear up in logic, cover it in responsibility, and parade it around like it makes sense. People are brilliant at this little theater of delay. They convince themselves that stalling is wisdom, that hesitation is caution, that waiting is maturity. But when urgency bursts in, when the walls start closing and the ground shakes beneath you, all those excuses vanish like smoke. Suddenly, none of them matter. Suddenly, you realize they were never real shields, just paper walls you hid behind. There's a peculiar comfort in excuses. They let you sleep. They let you look in mirror and pretend the reflection staring back isn't wasting away. They give you permission to stay small, to stay safe, to stay buried under mediocrity. But urgency doesn't care about your comfort. Urgency doesn't care about your pretty little reasons for not trying. It rips them out of your hands and throws them into the fire, because urgency has one rule: move or burn. Think about it. If the house was on fire, would you say you're too tired to leave? Would you tell yourself you'll get up tomorrow? No. You'd run. You'd crash through the door. You'd leap out the window. You'd do whatever it took to survive. That's what urgency does. It forces clarity. It strips life down to the core. No distractions, no excuses. Just now or never. But people hate that, don't they? They prefer the luxury of pretending tomorrow is guaranteed. They prefer to believe life will wait for them, that opportunities will politely line up at the door until they're ready. It's a lie they sell themselves to avoid the terror of action.